Okay, so today we're diving into something I think we all find kind of fascinating, maybe a little bit intimidating too, and that's power dynamics.
Hmm.
Like it or not, they're everywhere, right?
Absolutely.
From like who gets the corner office at work to, who gets to decide what we watch on TV. To get a handle on all of this, we're cracking open a book that's sparked a lot of debate. To say the least, The 48 Laws of Power
Hmm.
by Robert Greene.
Yes.
Now, before anyone thinks we're handing out like a villain's playbook here, that's not it at all.
Not at all.
More like we're going to use this book as a lens,
Right.
right,
Yeah,
to understand these, well, sometimes kind of ruthless tactics that have been used for ages.
that's a good way to put it. It's about observation as much as action.
Hmm.
Or understanding the motivations behind certain behaviors, the strategies people employ. It's all incredibly insightful, even if you choose never to use those tactics yourself.
Right, exactly. It's like knowledge is power, but not about using it, in a bad way, but more like if you can spot the game being played, you could at least decide if you want to play, how you want to play,
Yeah,
or maybe not at all.
I like that.
So let's jump right into some of these laws that really, well, made us think. The first one that just kind of jumps out, never outshine the master.
Hmm.
Now, on the one hand, this sounds like stay in your lane, don't rock the boat kind of advice. But then again, is there some wisdom there? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all about being strategic, right? Especially when you're maybe early in your career or you're new to a situation. The last thing you want to do is make those in power feel threatened.
Right.
Making your superiors look good, giving credit where it's due, those are smart moves. But the key takeaway here is it's not about diminishing your own light, but rather choosing when and how brightly to shine.
Okay, so it's not about like hiding your talents.
Yeah.
More like being savvy about how you use them.
Exactly. It's about understanding that sometimes the best way to advance is to demonstrate your value while simultaneously reinforcing your superior's competence.
Okay, I get it. It's a delicate dance.
It is, but one that can yield significant dividends in the long run.
Makes sense. It reminds me of another law that at first I was kind of like, whoa, that's harsh. Avoid friendships.
Yeah, I can see how that one might raise an eyebrow.
Right. Now, I'm all for professional boundaries, but are close relationships really a liability when it comes to, getting ahead?
It's not quite as black and white as it sounds. Green isn't suggesting we become hermits devoid of all personal connection. What he's really getting at is the potential danger of blurring the lines between professional alliances and genuine friendships, especially when power dynamics are at play.
Right, because when emotions get involved.
Exactly. Judgments can be clouded, even with the best intentions. Maintaining a degree of professional distance, particularly when you're in a position of authority, can allow for more objective decision-making.
So it's like you can be friendly, but maybe not, like best friends with your boss. Or if you are, be extra mindful of how that influences things.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sometimes those closest to us might not always be the most impartial judges of our actions.
Makes sense. And speaking of how our actions are perceived, here's another law that honestly at first I thought was a little superficial.
Oh, which one?
Dress well.
Yes.
Now, come on, is it really all about the clothes?
Well, you'd be surprised. There's actually quite a bit of research to support the idea that clothing plays a significant role in how we perceive and judge others. Think about it. We make snap judgments about people based on their appearance all the time, whether we realize it or not.
It's true. If you see someone in a like really polished outfit, you kind of assume they've got it together.
Exactly. Studies have shown that our clothing choices can influence perceptions of competence, trustworthiness, even social status. For example, certain colors are associated with specific emotions and attributes. A crisp, well-tailored outfit can project an aura of authority and confidence, while a more relaxed style might convey approachability or creativity.
So like our clothes are basically sending out a message, even if we don't realize it.
Exactly. And that ties back to what we were talking about earlier, this idea of perception management.
Right, right.
It's not about being fake or anything. It's about being aware of the signals you're sending out into the world and using that awareness, well, strategically, because how others perceive us in a way that is a form of power.
Huh. So you're saying like even if we don't feel particularly powerful, how we present ourselves can actually influence how much power we have in a situation.
Absolutely. It's like that saying, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. It's about projecting the image of the person you aspire to be.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects. So we've got never outshine the master, avoid friendships, dress well. They seem kind of random at first. But there's a common thread here, isn't there?
Absolutely. Beyond just managing perceptions, Green is really emphasizing the importance of strategic thinking. He wants us to be playing chess, not checkers.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. Thinking several moves ahead, anticipating the consequences of our actions, understanding that every move we make influences the entire board.
So it's like, don't just react, be proactive.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating law. Win through your actions, never through argument. In a world that's constantly trying to tell us what to think, what's more powerful than words?
Actions, right. I mean, everyone's heard that saying, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. Instead of wasting time and energy trying to convince people with arguments, let your accomplishments, your work ethic, your character speak for itself. It's a much more powerful approach, and honestly, it's just classier.
So instead of getting bogged down in these, like, Twitter wars or whatever,
Right.
just let your results do the talking.
Precisely. It's about quietly and confidently letting your accomplishments speak for themselves.
You know, it's funny, this law, it makes me think of, like, community projects I've been involved with.
Oh, yeah.
There's always those people who are, like, all talk, right? They'll complain about problems, but never actually lift a finger to help.
Yeah.
But then there are those who just quietly show up, put in the work, and actually make things happen. Guess who everyone respects more?
The doers, every time.
Every single time. It's not about seeking validation. It's about the quiet satisfaction of knowing you made a difference.
And that, in a way, is its own form of power.
Okay, so we've talked about thinking strategically, letting your actions do the talking. These are great takeaways. But, you know, we got to address the elephant in the room. We're talking about a book that some people see as, well, a how-to guide for not-so-nice behavior. How do we make sure we're using these insights for good and not, you know, turning into a Machiavellian schemer? That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Which is exactly why we wanted to have this deep dive in the first place. Remember, we're not saying go out there and use these laws to manipulate people. It's all about awareness, right? Knowledge is only as good as how you choose to use it.
Well said.
So are there any laws in this book that we can actually use to, you know, make the world a better place?
Absolutely. One that immediately comes to mind is concentrate all your forces on a single goal. Now, this might seem obvious, but in our world of constant distractions, it's easier said than done. I mean, how many times a day do you check your phone?
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. I'm like the queen of multitasking, or maybe like multi-distracting is more accurate.
Right. And when our attention is divided, we're less effective, less productive, and honestly, less happy.
It's true.
But here's the thing. This law isn't about manipulating others. It's about mastering yourself, identifying what truly matters to you, and then channeling your energy with laser focus towards that one thing.
So instead of trying to do it all, be it all, achieve it all at once, which is like impossible, by the way. It's about figuring out what really matters and going all in on that.
Exactly. Work smarter, not harder, right? And this principle can be applied to any area of life. Let's say you're working on a big project at work. Instead of spreading yourself thin trying to do everything at once, what if you picked the most important task and poured all your energy into that first? You're much more likely to create something truly great when you're not dividing your attention.
Makes sense. So it's about being intentional with your energy.
Exactly. And that takes practice and a good dose of self-awareness.
Which brings up another question. We've talked a lot about recognizing how other people might be using these laws on us. But what about recognizing our own tendencies? Like, how do we make sure we're not accidentally falling into any, you know, power-hungry traps?
That's where honest self-reflection comes in. Taking the time to really look at yourself, your motivations, how your actions might be perceived by others. It's not always comfortable, but it's so important.
So, like, we have to be willing to ask ourselves the hard questions.
Yeah.
Like, am I, without realizing it, outshining someone? Or am I coming on too strong, trying to win every argument when maybe I should just, like, let my work speak for itself?
Exactly. It's about being honest with yourself, recognizing that we all have blind spots. But by cultivating self-awareness, we can make more conscious choices about how we navigate these power dynamics. We can decide what kind of leader, what kind of friend, what kind of person we want to be.
I like that. It's not about, like, memorizing a bunch of rules. It's about using this knowledge to grow and become more, well, self-aware. But, okay, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room again. How has the digital age, social media, all that, changed the game when it comes to power dynamics?
It's an amazing question. I mean, on one hand, we have access to more information than ever before, which is incredibly empowering.
Right. Like if you want to know something, you can just Google it. You can connect with people on the other side of the world. It's kind of amazing when you think about it.
It really is. But it also creates new challenges. Misinformation spreads like wildfire, privacy is a constant concern, and the way we present ourselves online, it's like this whole other layer of power dynamics to navigate.
It's like you've got your real life and then your online life, and they both have their own sets of rules.
Exactly. And those rules are constantly evolving. It makes you wonder how some of these laws from the book might need a bit of an update for the digital age, right? Like one that comes to mind is use absence to increase your presence. It's this idea that, sometimes making yourself scarce can actually make you more desirable, more influential.
Yeah, like playing hard to get. But does that even work anymore when everyone's constantly connected?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's not so much about physically disappearing, but maybe more about being very intentional about where you direct your energy when you choose to engage.
So it's less about like ghosting people and more about like choosing your moments.
Exactly. Because in a world full of noise, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is create a little bit of silence, a little bit of space.
I like that. It's like that saying, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the 48 laws of power, what's your biggest takeaway? What really stuck with you?
It's funny, when I first read this book, some of it almost felt like common sense. Like, oh yeah, I've totally seen that happen, but I'd never really put it into words.
It's like they gave a name to these things we all kind of sense are going on, but maybe couldn't quite articulate.
Exactly. And while I definitely don't agree with everything in this book, I do think it's a valuable tool
A tool for what?
for understanding human behavior. It helps you decode those unspoken power dynamics that are always at play.
So it's less about like following a set of rules and more about just being more aware of, well, everything.
Exactly. It's about becoming a better observer of human nature, understanding the forces at play, and then making conscious choices about how you want to navigate this whole game of life.
I love that. It's like knowledge is power, but not in a manipulative way. It's about empowering yourself to move through the world with more awareness, more intention, more authenticity.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. We've only just scratched the surface of these 48 laws, and I have a feeling we could talk about this for hours.
Me too.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. One of the laws that's been on my mind is assume the posture of innocence. Now, in today's world where everyone's life is kind of on display online, what does that even mean?
That is a great question. Does it mean like we all need to go off the grid? Or is it about being more mindful about what we choose to share, how we present ourselves online? Maybe it's about cultivating a sense of inner peace, of integrity that can't be touched by all the chaos out there.
Ooh, that's a powerful thought. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of power, perception, and all the ways we navigate this crazy thing called life.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and as always, keep diving deep.